Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, The Universe Listens. As a very young person, I always felt that I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders, having to make grown-up decisions in order to survive a life marked with physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. While my face was smiling on the outside, on the inside, I always secretly cried and felt miserable. However, over the years, I learned some gems that helped to turn my life around. I now get to live the life of my dreams, filled with love, travel, and wonderment. And I am absolutely passionate about sharing what I have learned with you. If you want to live your best life, tune in each week as I, along with some amazing guests, share these life-changing gems with you. Inspired to be more, do more, have more. Greetings and welcome to today's show. Today's show is called Healing Trauma, and we have a guest with us today, DeBorah Berry. And DeBorah is actually a community activist, a future leader of our great city, Richmond, Virginia. And she actually has a wonderful story to share. She actually has had her share of trauma and hasn't been content with just sitting in it, but actually taking positive steps to heal from the trauma. So welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you. So what makes you want to talk about trauma?
So basically just my own journey in life. You know, I've had my own set of traumatic experiences, but I believe that if you're walking and breathing in life, you know, everyone goes through trauma and has a certain set of circumstances that they need to overcome.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I think we get stuck in trauma.
Yes.
So once things have happened, we don't know how to move forward.
Right.
And we'll continue to live. And I remember one of my girlfriends, she would always call us the Valley of the Walking Wounded because we're all wounded and we're just acting as if we're okay and really we're not.
Right, exactly. And one of the things that motivates me to find out more about it and heal my own trauma, which I'm currently still doing, I think it's an ongoing process. One of the things that motivated me particularly was just finding out that the trauma doesn't have to stay with you. You can heal it, and it allows you to be the best version of yourself for other people.
Yeah, excellent. So someone recently told me that, I don't think I want to say exactly what they told me, but I'll kind of work around the topic. And so they said a lot of times people survive. They're survivors of whatever the trauma is. And there's a total difference between being a survivor of trauma and a person who is healed.
Right.
And so do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. So firstly, I guess for the listeners, people may not understand what trauma actually is. And from my understanding, it's anything that can be devastating to the mind and it affects the body as well. So an example of that would be a soldier going to war and having to kill other people in war or see other people die. If that's their first experience, you know, having to kill someone or seeing someone being killed, that's a trauma for them. And centuries ago, psychologists defined that as post-traumatic stress disorder. So they have a traumatic event, and then when they come home, they're back in kind of like their normal day-to-day. They can't get that traumatic experience out of their mind. They have bad dreams about it, and it starts to affect the body. So they may try to suppress the thought, but the body remembers, and it starts to affect how they communicate with other people. So that's just an example of trauma. And my thoughts on it is, or my discussion today is about healing it, why healing is important, and how to heal. So The process of healing can be different for different people, depending on the level of trauma. As I mentioned, I believe that everyone has some sort of trauma, so what I just explained was pretty extreme. However, something that may not be as extreme is a person having a car accident. They could kind of maybe get triggered by maybe driving past the spot where the accident occurred. They may try to avoid it just because whenever that happens, they get the memory of it. And they may try to start to heal from that. Depending on the severity of the car accident, they may need therapy. So talk therapy is really good to talk about the circumstance. But to try to get your body to forget the trauma, there are other types of therapy that are available. And one is something you can do on your own. It's called EFT, and that stands for Emotional Freedom Training. So let's see, acupuncture is a field that I was interested in, and I found that the EFT training kind of draws some of the therapy that acupuncture provides. So an acupuncturist focuses on 14 different points of the body. They're referred to as meridian points. And all of these points, if they're working properly, allow the body's energy to flow. When you have a traumatic experience, your body can hold on to the trauma even if your mind doesn't fully remember it, or if you don't have the words to describe it. The cells in your body have memory. So your body's holding on to the trauma, which causes energy in your body to be trapped, so it cannot flow appropriately. Acupuncture allows the release of this energy so that your body can let go of the trauma, and it allows you to focus and fully function as a whole person. So there are different points on the body, and you can do them yourself. There are YouTube videos, there are different books out there on how to do EFT on yourself, or you can have a professional help you. So a couple of the meridian points on the body, one starts here on the top of the head, the third is here in between the eyes, there's another one here right under the lip, there's one on the chin, and then there's one on each point of your hand. So just doing certain or specific tapping on those areas on the body are to help release the trapped energy that one may find from their trauma.
So what if they release these blocks, what would they feel?
They would feel, depending on the severity of the trauma, they could feel that they're no longer in a fog. They could feel that their mind now has a better way of looking at certain situations. One example of a trauma that is not as intense of being a war vet and is not as light as a car accident could be a traumatic incident from a relationship. So sometimes children can be the greatest population to receive trauma, and a lot of times that comes from their caregivers. And in this case, that leaves a child in a position where the trauma is imprinted on them, because from the ages of 0 to 7 years old, you're kind of in, from what I've read and understood, you're in like a trance where your body and your brain are allowing you to absorb and learn the environment around you. So your parents serve as a template, if you will. They serve as something that you, or people that you learn from, and it sets you up for, like, you know, the rest of your adulthood. So if you have a traumatic experience as a child and it comes from a caregiver, the time frame of which that occurs can produce an emotional block that doesn't allow you to have the correct words to express yourself. And it can also bring this fear of intimacy. And intimacy goes beyond just a sexual intimacy, because you can have intimacy with your friends, your mother, your father, your brother and sister, and it's just like being comfortable looking at someone in the eye and feeling secure and free. But if that's lost in your childhood due to a trauma, then in the future, that kind of proposes a block mentally for you to connect and create relationships that are healthy with other people. Does that answer your question?
I think so, a little bit.
Okay.
So, as far as you go, and you using these techniques, how have these techniques helped you?
So they release that blocked energy. They release and dilute the memory of the trauma that my cells and my brain hold. So I've used the EFT, but I've also used, have gone to a professional and used EMDR, which is eye movement, desensitization, and I think the last letter stands for recoding. So it's something along the lines of allowing the eye movement to connect with the memory, to decode and kind of rewire how your brain holds the trauma. And in this particular technique, the therapist used buzzers. So I held on to 2 buzzers and they made vibrations and sensations in my hand, and this helped to connect to my brain. And while I was thinking about the trauma that occurred to me, I was talking through the trauma. So I would talk about what memory I had of it, and then I would allow myself to say what is happening in reality versus what happened in my trauma. So if my trauma made me feel unloved, scared, isolated, I would repeat as the buzzers are in my hand, I am loved, I am not afraid, and I am not alone. So I'm reconditioning the thought and the pattern that was ingrained in me from the trauma that happened years ago. So that's just a technique that is really started in the 90s with the studying of it and the progress that it's made. It's really found to be helpful for a lot of people. War vets have used it.
I've heard so much this stuff about EMDR. Actually, one of my best friends, she's a therapist and she loves EMDR.
Yes, it really works.
But specifically for you, how do you feel differently? Like, is it immediate? What are you noticing in your life as a result?
So the trauma that I had, I believe that it did not allow me to trust and communicate very easily with people that I wanted to be close to, with friends that I wanted to form close relationships with my husband that at the time that I wanted to form a deep relationship with. It blocked me from feeling as though I can trust someone that's close to me, or it blocked me from allowing myself to fully love in that way. So the energy throughout my body was remembering the traumatic instance, and it was not allowing me to be my greatest and full self. So I noticed a really traumatic change in my trauma. I still am a work in progress. I have more to go. I have more work to do to deal with other trauma in the past. And what I'm learning is that when holding on to trauma and not letting it go and allowing certain areas of my body to be blocked, it also kind of plays tricks on your mind, because you allow the trauma to make you afraid. So then you have fear, and when you start a new relationship, you have a clean slate with a new person, you find yourself falling in love, but there's a fear of the trauma that you had in the past reoccurring. You have old memories or triggers. So you could see someone, if you had a relationship where someone the relationship ended because that person cheated on you or they weren't being honest with you, and now you're in this fresh relationship. And one of the triggers in the past was you knew that whenever your old partner was on the phone, that they were doing something that you felt was inappropriate. So then now when you're in this fresh relationship, you see your new partner on the phone and you're triggered, and you haven't let go of that old wound. So in addition to the EFT and the EMDR, one of the biggest things that I found is working for me in healing my trauma is forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And that's another component that I found to be very helpful. Mm-hmm. So you have to not only forgive maybe the person that contributed to your traumatic experience, but forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. A lot of people forget to forgive themselves because that can be a little bit more difficult than trying to forgive other people.
Yeah. So you actually said a few things that goes right into a lot of what we talk about here. So you spoke about children being imprinted from the age of 0 to 7, and like what I always say, a lot of the thinking that we have is kind of undercurrent, underlying. We don't really realize that we're thinking this whole pattern of stuff that really keeps us locked in the situation that we're in. And so it's really just stuff that's just handed to us from our families, our community, and we just accept it as if this is truth, it's the law, it's the way it is.
Sure.
And so part of, I think, living your best life and realizing that there's more that you can have would be to release those things. And I like what you said about the cells remembering, like it's in your body. And I know a lot of times what I'm saying is envision yourself where you would like to be.
Yes.
And then play that vision over and over. And so basically what I'm saying is create a new neural pathway.
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. And so rather than keep going into that same ditch that we're used to going into, like we're actually creating a whole new pattern of thinking, of feeling about yourself. And those are the things that draw. When you think differently about yourself and about the world, then things change.
That's true. Yep, it is very true. And then your thought process allows you to connect to your body. So to help change the memory of the cell, you're more in tune to your thoughts. You trust yourself more, your instincts. The fear no longer takes a toll and plays tricks on you. Fear can be a tricky thing because it can make you see and hear things that don't even exist.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And one more addition to the healing process, so forgiveness being a big component, forgiving yourself, forgiving others. Yoga I found for myself, is a really good practice because it puts you in touch with how your body feels. So any type of exercise as well, but I find yoga to be very helpful for me. And meditating, which I know that you've done, and I've listened to your podcast before and reading your book, your marathon training. Did you feel like you were kind of getting in the zone when you ran long distances? I also trained for the marathon, and I learned that running long distances puts you in that zone, and it's like a form of meditation as well, because you kind of disconnect from thoughts, and your thoughts are not you.
Exactly. Yes, and it's funny that you say that because so many people say, how do you just run that long? And what are you thinking about? And I'm just like, I'm not thinking about anything.
And that's like a wonderful way to meditate. Because sometimes for me to just sit still and try to not think, I'm thinking more because I'm trying to not think.
Exactly.
But when I'm running and doing something, it comes easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming to this show today,
Thank you
sharing
for having
some things
me.
about
Yes.
EMDR and EFT and the tapping. Hopefully one day we'll get to talk more about the tapping.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like really interesting. So you say here here.
Yeah,
here.
these are different acupressure points. Yes.
So and so if you guys get a chance, go ahead and look up EFT and tapping as a way to release blocked energy in your body and to really reduce, I guess the part of whatever trauma is going on in your life.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for
You're
coming.
welcome. Thanks again for having me.
Sure. So you guys, I hope you enjoy the show, and please visit my website at arvetmcclain.com and get your free gift. Until next time, bye.